go to the phone lines. Welcome in our guy Tom Murphy into the program this morning. Tom, I listened to Auburn's coach, or maybe it was a guy from 24/7 Sports that had the intel that they could be they don't have a couple pitchers, or prospect of not having a couple pitchers, a starter and maybe their closer. How do you think that impacts the series this weekend with their pitching maybe being out of sorts?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. That could be a big deal, and Auburn here now hasn't contended in a while, and they're 2 games out. If they sweep, they're leading the division, and their Friday night starter, and I can't think of his name right now, but Matt Jones from Whole Hog listened to a podcast that Butch Thompson was on, and
Hayden Mullins is
Friday guy. I'm sorry?
Hayden Mullins.
Yeah, Hayden Mullins. Yeah, and so he looks less likely to pitch than Burkhalter, their closer, who's got a hamstring, and I think Mullins has some forearm tightness, so I don't think they want to risk him, so they'll have to pull one of their other potential weekend guys, or maybe their midweek guy. They didn't have a midweek game, and so he would start on Friday. And they got a left-hander with not a great ERA in the 5s, and a right-hander who seems to have more innings. So that makes Friday kind of iffy for them. And then Burkhalter is going to be day to day, and with his hamstring, they don't want to rush him back because there's potential for their team, there's potential for those guys, and you don't want to, lose the season because you rushed him back with a hamstring and you made it worse. So it's a delicate balance for them. If they have a 1-run lead in the 9th inning in any game of that series, will they use him? So, Arkansas is in better shape physically, but they're hitting. I mean, this is something we've harped on all season long, and it may be another question you have for me, but their hitting has just gotten to the point where they're chasing so much, and certain guys keep them off balance. And I attended the game on Tuesday where Missouri State, a left-handed with a 5-something ERA comes in and throws 5 really nice innings against them. So, they're up against it a little bit.
Tell me what the problem with Robert Moore is. And Dave's been asked that question over and over, and he keeps talking about how Robert keeps working out of practice, keeps busting his butt. I mean, what have you seen? Tommy and I have talked about hitting contact he's making. It's just going to the infield. He can't catch a break getting through the gaps. What are you seeing for Robert Moore in his hitting struggles?
Well, all you can really do is what he is doing, because he cares about the game. He would probably like to declare after this year, and probably will. And he had good freshman and sophomore seasons, but the batting average isn't there. I want to say it's in the 230s maybe. And but in the game the other night, he hit a screamer down the first that was a guy made a good play on, and he hit a really solid shot towards second, and the guy made it. So, at some point maybe his luck will change. If you keep hitting the ball hard, at some point the law of averages will play out. I don't like to make the excuse of he's hitting it hard but right at people. But in Robert's case, that applies more than anybody else on the team. I want to say he had a screaming shot to right field, too, and the guy stabbed it. I don't remember all the details, but he did have one hit in that game. And eventually, if you keep seeing the ball as well as he does and you keep spraying it to all fields, some of those balls are going to drop in, and maybe he's a guy who can get hot late in the year and help them make a postseason run, because right now, I wrote about this today. Over the last 10 games, the only guys who are marginally hot are Braden Webb, 333 average, and he did a lot of that in one game early on out of the 10, and Chris Lanzilli's hitting over 300. He seems the most consistent hitter all season long, just hitting between like 300 and 340. And then Kendall Diggs, he's 4 for 9, so not a lot of at-bats in those 10 games, but he had the big 3-run homer that won the Ole Miss game. And, if you get one guy who hits a 3-run homer in a weekend series, you can continue to win games. But you'd like more guys reaching base and more action and more delivery with runners in scoring position, and it's just dried up a little bit.
Yeah. Tom, we were talking earlier about the RPI in Arkansas at 29 and the non-con schedule. Normally, the SEC schedule is enough on its own to carry your RPI, and that brings the question about where is the SEC in baseball this year nationally. Do you think the league is down noticeably this year that's causing maybe a dip in the RPI, or is it solely centered around the non-conference schedule?
Well, I think it's both. I think the league is a little marginally down. I mean, it started the year, think about this, with, Ole Miss and Florida and very highly regarded, and Vanderbilt, all like top 10. And Ole Miss has just fallen off and could be, out of the postseason. And Vanderbilt isn't quite as powerful, and Florida isn't. Now, Arkansas will get a taste of Vandy next weekend, so we'll see. But I do believe that, and I wrote about this today too, it's a real poser for the committee when they're making their national seeds that Arkansas is ranked number 3. Now, they might drop because they lost to Missouri State, and depending on what happens at Auburn. But, from that standpoint, you make a case, they're easy, they're a national seed. But, yeah, you look at the RPI, and not so much. So, real poser for the committee. Arkansas, really, I think if they win the West, they'll be fine. I think they'll get a national seed. Mm-hmm. But if they don't win the West, I mean, they could be out of that or in the bottom half of it where you'd have to travel for a super regional. And that's why, putting the things together, getting a better Sunday start out of Wiggins, having maybe 4 guys hot on a weekend, and they could get things going in the right direction.
No national championship, but multiple trips over recent years to Omaha. Is Arkansas the kind of program that's earned maybe the benefit of the doubt if it's close with the committee?
That's a great question. I think if you had the committee chair on right now, he would say, oh, no, history plays no role. But they were the team last year that won every SEC series. It was number 1 for, 90-something% of the season. And really, let's just be truthful. Their bats went a little bit cold after they blew North Carolina State out in Game 1 of the Supers. But NC State was just one of those teams. It was just, it was a giant that woke up late in the year. And when you looked at their batting order, they had depth, they had power from both sides. And those right-handed pitchers who were in that 4 ERAs, the second guy and the third guy, just were pitching better at the end of the year, and that's what got Arkansas. Yeah. And so, historically, you'd think, a little bit, let's just say it was Southern Miss or Arkansas for the eight national seed. Well, Southern Miss just lost a weekend series. You know that their strength of schedule isn't what Arkansas is. I think that would favor Arkansas.
Yeah, to me, and the committee shouldn't look at it this way, but maybe they should, in my opinion. The sport needs all the help it can get nationally. When you present college baseball on TV, you want to have it in the best venues with the biggest crowds. Make it look important. Make it look like it matters. Well, Baum Walker's a venue that it makes the sport look like it matters. And to me, that should carry some weight. Now, like you said, the committee chair may never admit to that, but when you're trying to market a sport, and college baseball is not exactly number 1, where you play your games and what they look like on TV should matter. And Baum Walker's a place you ought to have games if you can, because we know it will put on a great show on TV.
Yeah, I have not been thinking of this. You posed the question, but it's a great point. And it's probably like an unstated thing. Again, I'll pose the same. Southern Miss, Super Regional, or Fayetteville, Super Regional. And yes, we know what that looks like. It every time you see the national games broadcast here, there's a buzz to it, and they understand that. You think about the Charlie Welch hit against Florida last year that was just unbelievable noise. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that plays in Arkansas's favor big time. And now they just need to deliver, win these last 3 series, go 5-4, go 6-3, and you got the West.
Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Whole Hog Sports. So to the statement you just made, are they going to deliver? Do you have confidence that this team will be able to beat Auburn or Vanderbilt or Alabama down the stretch and clinch the SEC West?
There's enough of a track record this season with the questionable situational hitting. And I'm just talking about advancing runners, making contact with a guy on third base, hitting a chopper. that it's shaky. I am not sure that they will pull through. If they go 5-4, and A&M I think has a pretty favorable closing stretch. But Auburn with the pitching situation this weekend, I think it's a break Arkansas might have needed. I think they're going to be able to go 5-4. And if that holds off Texas A&M, then I think they'll win it. Alabama has been struggling of late, so you'd like to see them kind of still in that shape when Arkansas finishes the season up there. But if they can take, I think if they can go at least 3-3 against Auburn and Vandy, or 4-2, then I think they'll do it.
Tommy made an interesting point earlier this week about the landscape of the SEC West. Is it odd to you, Tom, to see Alabama? They're not tied right now. It's more LSU and A&M. But is it odd to see Auburn up there near the top with the chance to beat you out for the West title this year?
A little bit odd. They got the hitter from an in-state school, Troy or Jacksonville State. I can't remember. They got the Trent Sonny, and he's really helped them. And they do have a nice pitching staff. And we saw it here last year when they won Game 1, and then Arkansas was in. They really had to battle to win that series against Auburn here early last year. So not a huge surprise. The West, it's like in any other sport. Like I covered track golf pretty good. Any team in the West can rise up. It's shocking to me, though, that both of the Ole Miss schools fell off to the extent they have, because they were both well regarded. And LSU, we saw a sweep here, but they're getting better. And they're not back to their standard, obviously. And so that's why, you wish Arkansas had won another game or two along the way, one of the Florida games, like the middle game at Missouri. Just a few stand out to me that if they had one more, they'd have a little bit more wiggle room. But it's just been a weird year, y'all, throughout the SEC. The fact that Vandy and Florida don't have great records, and the only team that's even getting a sniff of Tennessee is Georgia.
Yeah. Tom, good stuff. We'll talk about what happens this weekend on Monday, and we'll catch up with you then.
Yeah, I hope everybody has an outstanding weekend. See y'all then.
Yeah, see you then. So, Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, here with us on
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.